Chapter 1161, Supernatural. Many remains had opened, and many secret practitioners had participated in them. They would definitely discuss their experiences after getting out. Even an ordinary person like Israel knew that strange things would occur in the remains at night. Lu Shu did not need to remind her. Israel was also curious why nothing had happened after a night, but she could not say this. She had to find an opportunity to humiliate Lu Shu. Israel and the rest were afraid for the entire night, but Lu Shu slept very well. Israel and the rest could not help but open their eyes and look around at their surroundings. When they saw Lu Shu sleeping soundly, they felt that it was not fair. But they did not know that although Lu Shu was asleep, the best thing about being a master was that his senses were heightened. Even if he was asleep, as long as an unfamiliar creature appeared within a 1-kilometer radius, he would be awakened. But no danger had appeared. The campsite that Lu Shu had found last night was within a sheltered mound on a hill. It was sloped such that their heads were sheltered. He stood up and walked out to take a look at their surroundings. He had not noticed anything at first, but now, he was shocked. He lowered his voice and said, "Hurry, hurry, come with me." Israel laughed coldly. "Are you deliberately causing trouble?" She looked around. There was nothing wrong. What was this young man up to? "If you're not going, then I will." Lu Shu chose a direction and went downhill. Israel and the rest had no choice. They could only follow after him. After Lu Shu went downhill, he quietly walked for a few minutes. Suddenly, he stopped and turned around. Israel finally dared to speak. "Is there any danger?" Lu Shu paused for 2 seconds. Then, he said, "No." From Israel Moore's Distress, plus 666. From. Israel was about to cry. Her feet were full of blisters from yesterday. Her legs ached. Thanks to Lu Shu, all her blisters had popped. "I thought that there was danger." Lu Shu glanced at them. "But I realized that it had no intention of attacking us. To be honest, if it had such plans, we might not have been able to sleep so soundly last night. Look at the hill we slept on. Doesn't it look like a sleeping tortoise?" Israel and the rest slowly turned and looked. The hill, which had a radius of 1 kilometer, was a sleeping tortoise. They had not seen it as it was too dark last night. They only just realized that something was wrong. Furthermore, this sleeping tortoise had even escaped Lu Shu's senses. Yesterday, they had bumped into wild cows who fed on thunderclouds. Today, they encountered this frightening tortoise. What class was this massive creature? The shell of the tortoise alone was hard to imagine. Furthermore, this tortoise had been lying here for a long time. Even the soil on its body had formed small piles. Lu Shu was sure that it was alive. It just did not want to move. What in the world was with this remain? For some reason, this was the first time that Lu Shu felt that masters could not be prideful here. If not, they might encounter something strange. Lu Shu was 80% sure that he could defeat this tortoise, but there was a 20% possibility that he could not. If it was lying down, then forget it. It was best not to provoke it. Lu Shu suspected that they had not sensed anything strange last night as they had been on the shell of this tortoise. Would the creatures on Earth mutate to this level? It was far too frightening. Not every single species of tortoise was kind and genial. Furthermore, would whales mutate into a koan on one? Wait. Why had he not seen such strong creatures in the universe? "Let's hurry up and leave this place," said Lu Shu. "How will we resolve the issue of food?" Israel suddenly asked, "As a practitioner, won't you carry any rations when you explore the remains?" Israel and the rest had wanted to ask this question for some time. Why did Lu Shu not even have a backpack? Lu Shu waved. He helplessly said, "My backpack was stolen." Israel and the rest were dumbfounded. They finally understood. This made sense. It was known that the cultivation realm was not fair. It was common for things to be stolen in the remains. Furthermore, this young man was only a rank E, anyone would be able to rob him. Let's hurry up and find other practitioners. Lu Shu continued walking forwards. He wanted to find someone else to hand over Israel and the rest. Evidently, Israel and the rest did not know what Lu Shu was planning. They thought that Lu Shu wanted to find others for food. Lu Shu thought that if the remains were very vast, it would take a long time to find the relic. Practitioners without invisible storage equipment would definitely run out of rations. They would definitely run out of water, especially in this dry wilderness. Of course, there were definitely water sources in the remains. If not, how did the creatures here survive? Israel asked Lu Shu, "Have you entered remains before?" "Yes," said Lu Shu as he walked. "I have entered many remains." First impressions were the strongest. Israel felt that all the truths Lu Shu had said felt like he was boasting. Practitioners would definitely sense something wrong with Lu Shu, but Israel and the rest had not even experienced living outside. Thus, they could not determine whether Lu Shu was telling the truth. As they walked, Lu Shu suddenly heard the thunderous sound of galloping. It was not thunder. There were wild creatures running in the wilderness. Israel, who had still been arrogant, was not afraid. "What is that? What is heading towards us?" Lu Shu furrowed his eyebrows and looked at the source of the sound. To his shock, he discovered that it was the herd of wild cows he encountered when he had just entered the remains. Israel shouted, "Should we run? Can you outrun them?" Lu Shu was speechless. Soon after, the herd of wild cows approached Lu Shu and the rest. Israel was in despair. It was as if her life was about to come to an end. They subconsciously hid behind Lu Shu and closed their eyes. They did not even dare to look. But when the herd of cows came to Lu Shu, they stopped. They no longer looked up to the sky. They quietly looked at Lu Shu. Where was the lightning? Where is our lighting? What in the world? Lu Shu suddenly felt that this herd of cows were relying on him. What kinds of cows were these? What kind of habit was this? He looked at the cows. There is no lightning today. Maybe next time. The cows seemed to understand his gaze. They looked at him again. We do not care. Where is our lightning? Chapter 1162, Interviewer of Death. Lu Shu was about to collapse. He had come to a strange remains. Furthermore, he had encountered an odd herd of cows that chased him to eat lightning. No one else in the remains would have had such a bizarre encounter, right? Even if he told others about this, they might not believe him. Furthermore, he realized that the communication between them was definitely not through gazes. It was as if these cows had the ability to communicate with his spirit. Lu Shu knew that Little Fury had gained the ability to speak after advancing to rank 1, but other creatures he had encountered did not have this ability. For example, the creatures that belonged to Gulingfei and Duanmu Huangqi could not speak. Lu Shu had asked the Imperial Dragon soldiers. They had said that even rank 1 creatures could not speak. This was also why Lu Shu felt that something was very strange when he heard Little Fury speak. What breed was Little Fury? Now, although these cows could not speak, they had the ability to communicate with his spirit. Were they special, or was there something else? Israel and the rest shivered behind Lu Shu. Lu Shu looked at the cows, and the cows looked at Lu Shu. They quietly stood. After 10 minutes, the cows realized that Lu Shu had no intention of calling lightning for them. They waved their tails and ran away. Lu Shu was somewhat shocked. He wanted to see whether these cows would attack him because they could not eat lightning. But it seemed like they were rather meek. Would he be able to make use of Lu Xiaoyu's talent of controlling beasts? Lu Xiaoyu felt that although these cows had no intention of attacking now, if they did attack, Lu Shu would be at a disadvantage. Back then, Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu had discussed this. In the past, Lu Xiaoyu was not able to control many creatures. When she advanced to rank 2, she was able to control more creatures. Now that she was a rank 1, and might advance to the Master Realm in the future, how many creatures would she be able to control? The remains seemed to be very suitable for Lu Xiaoyu. When Israel and the rest heard the sound of the cows leaving, they finally dared to open their eyes. They poked their heads out. Are they gone? Did they leave just like that? Lu Shu thought about it and said, "Do you want me to call them back?" From Israel Moore's Distress, plus 666. From Israel's expression changed. Why would you call them back? You sounded rather disappointed, said Lu Shu. I just don't understand why they would come and leave just like that. Why didn't they attack us? Israel was upset. Lu Shu smiled. Not being attacked in the remains is a cause for celebration. There is no meaning in chasing the reason behind this. Curiosity will kill you. I am a reporter. I have to maintain my curiosity. Israel defended herself. Lu Shu was suddenly interested. It seems like you are very famous in North America. Who is the most famous person you have interviewed? The Saint. Have you heard of him? Israel was very proud. Lu Shu almost said that he had defeated him. He resisted the urge and nodded his head. He asked, who else? I have been to Northern Europe to interview the bishop and Francesco from the Department of Faith Theory, said Israel. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. You are the interviewer of death. All the famous people who had been interviewed by her were dead. From Israel Moore's Distress, plus 666. From Israel felt awkward. We cannot determine the outcomes of the battles in the cultivation realm. Even if they are dead, their names will remain in the history of cultivation. Yes, yes. Lu Shu was not paying attention. These 3 people had died under the hands of the Heavenly Network. He suddenly asked, have you interviewed anyone from the Heavenly Network? I wanted to, but they rejected my requests. Israel was indignant. The Heavenly Network is the most mysterious existence in the entire cultivation realm. I secretly took a picture of someone from the Heavenly Network, and he confiscated my memory card. He refused to be interviewed too. Lu Shu felt that this was normal. Her memory card would definitely be confiscated. You were the interviewer of death. You were a walking flag. At that moment, Israel was suddenly interested. I heard that the 9th Heavenly King from the Heavenly Network has come to Yellowstone National Park as well. He is definitely in the remains. If I can interview him, I will be world famous. Lu Shu suddenly had a strange expression on his face. Do you know what the 9th Heavenly King looks like? Israel looked disappointed once again. No. He is far too mysterious. People yearn for strong and mysterious men. Israel glanced at Lu Shu. You will never be as strong as him in your entire life. Yes, yes, you are right, said Lu Shu politely. But even if we cannot interview him, we can communicate with their Office of Foreign Affairs. Yesterday, I got into contact with the Office of Foreign Affairs from the Heavenly Network. I asked them why they decided to send the 9th Heavenly King here. After all, the rest of the cultivation realm seems to be very afraid of this Heavenly Network, said Israel. Someone even said that sending the 9th Heavenly King to the remains is an inhumane thing to do. Lu Shu's eyes lit up. How did the Heavenly Network respond? Israel said, he said that, they could not stop him. Lu Shu did not know whether to laugh or to cry. Who said this? Hao Jichao. Yu Minggu. Zhang Yutong? Yu Minggu was in charge of the Office of Foreign Affairs now. In the afternoon, Israel and the rest had not eaten for a day. They had not drunk any water either. There were blisters all over their feet. Israel popped her blisters over and over again. At that moment, they suddenly saw people in the distance. It was as if a group of people were walking towards them. Israel was suddenly excited. It was like finally seeing land after drifting at sea for over 20 days. But Lu Shu furrowed his eyebrows. He was a master. He was able to see their expressions clearly. Israel and the rest had not realized who was approaching them, but Lu Shu had seen that out of the 7 people in the group, 4 of them were women. There were 3 practitioners behind them. The 3 practitioners were Class Cs, but the women were ordinary people. Only one of the women was a rank 4 practitioner. Lu Shu had understood their plight. He did not find this strange, as he had seen this in the past. But he was curious. Why were there so many ordinary people in the remains? Israel had said that the range of the remains had suddenly expanded, but Lu Shu did not know how much it had expanded by. There was no social order here. Humans could become beasts that were even more dangerous than the wild cows they had encountered. People would not be able to differentiate who was human and who was a beast. At least the herd of cows did not attack humans. Chapter 1163, Chase Away Lu Shu. When Lu Shu realized that there was something wrong with this group of people, he quietly stood where he was. On the other hand, Israel and the rest excitedly shouted and waved. "Help us, please help us. We are here." This call for help was like disaster survivors on a deserted island waving to a passing ship. Israel and the rest detested Lu Shu. On one hand, Lu Shu was very weak. He would not be able to protect them in this kind of place. On the other hand, they felt that Lu Shu's attitude towards them was very poor. She was a famous and beautiful reporter from North America. She was rather well known in the cultivation realm. However, when they were with Lu Shu treated them like any other ordinary person. Israel and the rest knew that the remains were very dangerous. Someone had exposed the darkness of the remains. However, they had also interviewed many people who entered the remains and made it out alive. They felt that the darkness was only an exception. Their interviewees had been very positive. But they did not know that no one would reveal the difficulties they had faced in an interview. They would be crazy if they did so. The group of 7 people saw Israel and the rest. Then, they hurried over. Lu Shu looked around. He wanted to see if any creatures had been provoked by Israel's shouting. To be honest, the weakest creature he had encountered in the remains was a rank 2. One of them could easily eliminate this group of people. Luckily, this place was vast. The creatures were not crowded together. The expressions of the 4 women in the group were complex. They secretly observed Lu Shu and Israel's other companions. On the other hand, the 3 men were excitedly looking at Israel. Israel suddenly turned and looked at Lu Shu. She said, "You can go now. I didn't like you from the very beginning. You are simply a rank 5 practitioner. Why do you act like an expert? I don't want to see you ever again." Lu Shu said, "Are you serious?" They did not know who Lu Shu really was. What gave them the right to make this decision? Lu Shu had been kicked to the curb after he had outlived his usefulness. This was the dissatisfaction they had accumulated towards him. But Lu Shu was genuine in his actions. He waved at the rest. "Then I will take my leave." When the other 4 women heard Israel say that Lu Shu was simply a rank 5 practitioner, they seemed disappointed. They knew that Lu Shu was different from the 3 practitioners who oppressed them. If not, as an ordinary person, Israel would not have been so harsh in her tone towards Lu Shu. But a rank 5 was of no use. They could only keep their thoughts to themselves. They did not dare to speak. Israel looked at Lu Shu's back. She wanted to speak, but stopped. Had she been too harsh with her words? It was definitely safer to be with a larger group, but she had driven him away. A rank 5 practitioner would be dead in seconds if he encountered any danger here, right? Although Lu Shu was infuriating, he had stood in front of them when the wild cows came. But Israel thought about it. What use was there standing in front of them? He was just a rank 5 practitioner. In the end, Israel did not stop Lu Shu. He turned and looked at the 3 male practitioners. They were all Caucasians. One of them carefully observed Israel. Suddenly, he said, "You are the famous female reporter." Israel's eyes lit up. "You know me?" She was about to explode from happiness. She was finally recognized. When celebrities encountered difficult situations or people, they would unconsciously ask, "Do you know who I am?" They hoped that people would recognize them and give them better treatment. When Israel encountered Lu Shu, she was unhappy. Yesterday, she realized that Lu Shu really did not recognize her. She did not know which distant mountainous village he had emerged from to come to the North American remains. Since someone had recognized her, it would be very easy. Israel said, "I am Israel, a reporter from TSS. We entered the remains by accident during an interview. I hope that you will be able to help us escape the remains." "Oh yes. Do you know what the range of the remains is this time? Why did the remains suddenly expand?" Everyone knew that leaving the remains now was not realistic. She wanted these people to protect her until the remains ended. One of them smiled and said, "This time, the remains have engulfed the entire Yellowstone National Park." These people were in the city just outside Yellowstone National Park. They were brought here when they were sleeping at home. Israel was dumbfounded. She did not expect the surface area of the remains to be so large. Everyone knew that the surface area that the remains occupied had expanded, but if it had expanded to cover the city outside Yellowstone National Park, how much would it cover the next time it opened? The next time the remains opened, all the ordinary people would have to evacuate. This time, the number of ordinary people in the remains was uncountable. Israel suddenly looked at the 3 Caucasians. "Can you help us get out of the remains?" She was still very optimistic. After all, these people had helped 4 others. It would not be much to help another 4 people. But one of them smiled and said, "We can take you in, but forget about your companions." "Are you saying that you can only take me in?" Israel could not believe it. Why? She finally realized that something was wrong. Her excitement slowly disappeared. She realized that the excitement had gotten to her head. She had lost her power of judgment. She observed the 4 women behind the Caucasians. She looked at their untidy clothes, and their bitter and fearful expressions. She thought about what the person had said. Did he mean that he only took in females? Even an idiot would know that the 3 of them were up to no good. Israel panicked. She suddenly felt that although the young man was only a rank 5, and it would not be safe to travel with him, it was still better than traveling with 3 rank 4 beasts. At this moment, Israel missed Lu Shu dearly. Then what about my companions? Israel suppressed her fear. We can't abandon and ignore them. The 3 Caucasians silently surrounded Israel and the rest. One of them smiled. We will definitely not abandon and ignore them. They will die here. Then, the scorpions will lay eggs on their bodies. Their bodies will become nutrients for the young scorpions. Chapter 1164, Despair. Thus, 3 people had wanted to kill Israel's 3 companions to prevent them from leaking their secrets. Although the original social order had collapsed after entering the remains, everyone knew that the remains would eventually disappear. When outsiders knew what they had done inside, their reputation would be ruined. If they let Israel's companions go, and Israel disappeared after the remains ended, they would definitely put the blame on the 3 Caucasians. Thus, how could they let them go? They would not even let the women with them and Israel leave the remains. They had wanted to kill Lu Shu, but the 3 Caucasians were mediocre. Furthermore, Lu Shu's expression was far too calm. Israel and the rest of the ordinary people could not tell, but the three people could sense that there was something wrong with Lu Shu. They felt that it was best to avoid trouble. In the end, they decided to let Lu Shu go. They did not want to provoke him. Unlike Israel, they did not feel that Lu Shu was as simple as he seemed. Israel suddenly felt that the most frightening things in this world were not the creatures in the remains. People with boundless ambition were. The darkness in people's hearts would emerge after they felt that they would not be punished for their actions. Israel suddenly felt she preferred being with Lu Shu. Although she viewed Lu Shu's strength with disdain, she knew that even a rank 5 practitioner would be able to protect the four of them. But from the very beginning, he did not have any ulterior motives. He had moral conduct. No. He had moral conduct, but was very infuriating. Israel took the opportunity before the three Caucasians could approach her to suddenly run towards Lu Shu. While she ran, she shouted, "Help!" In times of danger where her life was at risk, Israel pinned her hopes on Lu Shu. But the three practitioners were much faster than her. Before long, she was caught by the three practitioners. Her companions stood by the side. They did not dare to speak. They even wanted to abandon Israel and run. Israel knew that her three companions were useless. At least Lu Shu had reminded her when she walked in high heels. Her colleagues had never offered to help her. But Israel knew that they were in the remains. She could not blame anyone. However, in her situation where she might be humiliated and bullied, she was in despair. Israel desperately wished for the young man to suddenly return and defeat the three practitioners like a superhero. However, it was a pity that Lu Shu had no intentions of becoming a superhero. She was not a princess or the female protagonist of a movie. The three practitioners laughed and dragged Israel on the ground. "How can we let you go? We have been hoping for this day to arrive since we saw your show. We never expected this day to come." Israel was not foolish. She did not threaten that she would expose them when they got out of the remains. She knew that she might not be able to escape if she did so. At that moment, Israel suddenly saw a gray thread on the ground. She was dumbfounded. What was this? Was this a strange creature in the remains? She could not be blamed for doing so, as the gray thread moved as if it was alive. It was like a poisonous snake, except that it was much thinner. In an instant, the gray thread flew towards the three Caucasians like a snake raising its head. Blood erupted from their necks at the same time. The gray thread did not stop. Instead, it went underground and disappeared. No one understood what had happened. The three Caucasians clutched their necks and slowly crawled to the ground. They could not even speak. They could only bend down and panted heavily. Only they knew that something had cut through their carotid artery and their necks. If only their carotid artery had been injured, they would not die with their recovery skills as practitioners. If their blood flow was forcibly stopped, the recovery skills of their blood vessels were very strong. But now, they could not do anything. They could only wait for their deaths. Israel looked at the three people in doubt. But she turned and ran towards the direction Lu Shu had disappeared in without any hesitation. Everything that had happened today eliminated Israel's hesitation. She only wanted to seek protection. She did not even care about her companions. She only wanted to run towards Lu Shu. She even considered whether the gray thread was Lu Shu's. At first, she had thought that it was a creature from the remains. But she thought about it. If the creature was that strong, why had it only killed 3 people? Israel determined that Lu Shu might be nearby, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Furthermore, he might not be a rank 5 practitioner. Israel ran, and the others followed suit. The more Israel ran, the more she fell into despair. She could no longer run, but she could not see Lu Shu anywhere. The group of people slowed down in disappointment. They walked for another hour before something suddenly happened. Israel furrowed her eyebrows and asked, "Do you smell something?" They looked at one another helplessly. It was the smell of barbecued meat. They walked faster. After all, they could not control their hunger. After they crossed a hill, they realized that a pond had appeared. There was even a spring where fresh water flowed from. Lu Shu sat by the pond and broke some branches. He hummed while eating the barbecued meat. Beside Lu Shu was a fallen antelope. The meat from its leg had been cut away. When Israel saw Lu Shu, it was as if she had seen hope. She wanted to ask him whether he had saved her. When Lu Shu saw Israel, he was alarmed. "This is the barbecued meat I cooked." Israel was about to laugh from anger. It seemed like she had thought too much. What about this young man looked like a superhero? "How much is it?" "I will buy it from you," said Israel. She knew that this young man was greedy for money. Lu Shu beamed with joy. "You are serious about this? Am I really someone who chooses money over my life? One piece of meat will be $100,000. The water is free. My treat." Israel unkindly sat down. For some reason, when Israel sat beside Lu Shu, she felt very peaceful. Subconsciously, she felt that it was safer with him. Chapter 1165, First Class Ingredients. Lu Shu had been following a herd of antelopes for a long time. These antelopes were not as strong and tough as the cows, but they were quite fast. When Lu Shu chased them, the antelopes were able to kick up clouds with their feet. It was hard to see them. As expected, the creatures in the remains all had special characteristics. But it was not realistic for them to outrun a master. Lu Shu caught one and wanted to taste what a higher-leveled creature tasted like. When the antelopes were chased, they only cared about running away. They did not try to attack Lu Shu. No matter whether it was the cows or antelopes, they all made Lu Shu feel like he was living in the wilderness of the cultivation realm. There was a food chain and various species of animals. The animals were stronger, but they did not attack humans like imagined. This was a post-evolution world. It showed Lu Shu how the Earth might become in a few decades, or even a few centuries. Humans could fly into the sky or go underground, but other creatures could eat lightning and create clouds. But the antelope meat did not disappoint Lu Shu. He took one bite and could already taste the quality of first-class ingredients. It did not melt in his mouth, but the smell of the meat was refreshing. The fat in the meat was cooked. When he took a bite of the meat, the outside was crisp, while the inside was tender. This time, Israel did not complain about Lu Shu's fees. She was far too hungry and far too thirsty. But she thought about it and said, "I will only pay for my share." She had just encountered the most sinister people on Earth. When she thought about how her companions did not try to save her when she was in danger, she was upset. Perhaps she would put aside her grudges after some time and calmly scrutinize others, but she was upset now. Every ordinary person would have this kind of feelings. In the end, Israel was a layman. She was an ordinary person. As for Lu Shu, Israel felt that he was a true layman. But now, she only trusted Lu Shu. "You can drink the water." This antelope had been drinking water here. Lu Shu smiled. "But I suggest that you boil the water for 20 minutes before drinking it. You've seen what kind of place this is. All the animals here are much stronger than on Earth. Bacteria would have evolved as well. They might have evolved to an unimaginable level. The antelope might be able to withstand it, but you might not." Lu Shu knew that besides the new lay person, the rest of them were ordinary people. Magical energy spurred the evolution of creatures. Bacteria were creatures as well. Many people felt that bacteria were not a threat, but reality would teach them otherwise. It would be more than a correction of their beliefs. The others had taken out checks to pass to Lu Shu. Lu Shu beamed with joy. Every time he entered the remains, it was like a plentiful harvest for him. He knew that not everyone would be able to pay him the full amount. Many people thought that foreigners were very rich. But $100,000 was not a small amount for foreigners. Compared to Iron Man, the pursuit of happiness would allow more people to understand how the lives of the lower class in other countries was like. But Lu Shu did not take them seriously. He knew that if they did not eat or drink, they would definitely die. To Lu Shu, food was something he could easily obtain. Could he really watch these people die just like that? No. Most people with moral values, compassion, and sympathy would not be able to do so. When Israel took a bite, she felt the fatigue in her body rapidly disappear. Perhaps this was the miraculous element of high-leveled creatures. It had been 2 days since they entered the remains. They were starving. They quietly ate and tasted the miracle of antelope meat. Israel took off her shoes. The blisters on her feet had started to rapidly heal. Her scabs fell off even before she finished eating. What class is this antelope? Israel looked at Lu Shu and asked. Probably a rank 5, said Lu Shu as he happily ate the meat. However, he knew that this antelope was probably a peak rank 2. He cut another piece of antelope meat and cooked it above the fire. Israel was like a changed person. She asked Lu Shu many questions, while the rest looked on helplessly. Israel was suddenly excited about the realm of cultivation, all because of a piece of antelope meat. She was one of the first few reporters to dive into the cultivation realm. She liked supernatural worlds, but she could not awaken. Now, a piece of meat had healed all her fatigue. She even felt full of energy. She felt like a young child reading Harry Potter. All the magical spells attracted you, making you wish you could live in their world. It was said that one would not feel regret, even if they did not receive offer letters from Tsinghua University and Peking University. The most sorrowful thing was not receiving an invitation from the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Lu Shu felt as if there was a mosquito beside his ear while he was eating. Suddenly, Israel asked, "What kind of power did you want most as a child?" Lu Shu thought about it and said, "Invisibility." "What would you want to do after gaining invisibility?" Israel continued to ask. Lu Shu paused for 2 seconds. Then, he said, "I want to quietly sit here and eat." From Israel Moore's Distress, plus 666. Israel admitted that she relied on Lu Shu. She even enjoyed this feeling as it made her feel safe. There were times when she thought, although Lu Shu was not very powerful, it was not bad being with a guy like him. On the other hand, the female practitioner was more active. She had entered the remains before. Thus, she was used to this kind of situation. She even used her advantage as a female to exchange for benefits from male secret practitioners. Thus, while others were still recovering from their fright, the female practitioner stuck close to Lu Shu. It was a pity that Lu Shu was not like those male secret practitioners. He knew how to properly reject such acts of kindness from female secret practitioners. The female secret practitioner also learned quickly that Lu Shu was not that kind of person. Israel saw all of this. She suddenly felt that this young man was not bad. It was just that he was a few years younger than her. Would he be fine with the female being older? What was she thinking about? Lu Shu looked at the sky. "We have to leave this place and find another place to set up camp." "Why don't we set up camp here?" someone asked. "There is water here." Lu Shu smiled. "The creatures here will find water too. You should be thankful that they have not come." Everyone was shocked by this. They quickly packed their belongings. Lu Shu did not even have to pack the leftover antelope meat. Someone had already packed it. Everyone tried their best to show their value as they wanted to survive. The antelope was food for everyone. They could not throw it away. But they did not know that the entire herd of antelopes was in the Seal of Lands. Was Lu Shu the kind to only capture an antelope? Evidently not.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just put 'em on the shelf. Try to look to the heavens.